Hello, another endless video. This time for Pepisolo and Goldenwolf. This is going to show how to create LOD1, and this is also going to look here at the ship rework status document that you have access to. So obviously, there's a lot of stuff in here. It's organized by folder group. The idea behind the folder groups is that under final game meshes here, um, the folder group would be what folder it goes into. And then beyond that, you've got the ship folder name, which may be in some cases different from the actual name in the game because Keith changed those in some cases. So if there's something that doesn't seem to be found in the game when you're on the integration step, then you can always email Keith or just try and find what seems to be relevant. In the case of like the Special Forces guard post, I put a note on here saying, it's also called the Special Forces Ninja Hideout. He may have changed that because now the Special Forces are like the Warden Fleet, I think, which is a way better name, but for what they've evolved into. But at any rate, names won't always match. Scale. The scale here is a rough guideline which tells you which one of these scale boxes it should be kind of close to. So if you click into these, you've got 1 unit, 2, 4, 8, 16, 24, 36, 54, 80, and then 162. And so each one of these is a perfect cube, obviously, that will let you kind of match width, height, or both for your ship. Usually it's the length winds up being this long, and so it's going to be a lot shorter and probably a lot narrower because most of the ships are longer than they are wide or tall, but that's not always the case. Case in point, you've got the arc, which, well, the main arc is taller than it is wide or long, and the Rorqual one, though, is longer than it is wide or tall. So these two are both considered scale 162, but as you can see, they're a bit different. The arc itself, I have sitting a bit lower, so it looks smaller than this, but it actually hangs down some, and that's fine. The height that you put the ships on in here is going to be the height that they are showing in the game in a relative offset. So whatever the baseline is in the game, if you've got these higher or lower, they will sit higher or lower in the game. That's actually really useful because sometimes you've got something really huge that you want to stick down below the normal playfield instead of just being way up high. So you can make adjustments that way. So you can see why most everything is on an even plane here, and that plane lines up actually with the 0 coordinates globally, 0 y coordinates. Anyhow, so the scale, it's a rough guide. We have various ones that are labeled miscellaneous, and those are ships where we've got guardians that have a variety of different sizes. And so here's one example of, for some reason, there's only, where's the number one? The number one is way over there. So the Carrier Guardian 1 is that size, Carrier Guardian 2, 3, 4, 5. For the starships and the Guardians, that's going to be the case where we want 5 different sizes of them. What you'll wind up doing, though, is making one set of things for the actual ship mesh and materials and LODs and all of that. And then you'll just wind up scaling up the final result and saving those as separate prefabs. And so I'll give you an example of that in a separate video. But basically, when it comes to the scale for those things, just kind of eyeball it and just basically the scale doesn't really matter. It doesn't really have an in-game effect on anything. However, there's a rough guide to how originally Keith wanted things to feel in terms of what's big and what's small, and you know, you know, just how the overall sense of scale on the battlefield is. And so for most things, we try and keep it pretty close to what that scale is stated as. With things like the Guardians, some Guardians are scarier than others, and some have different dimensions than others. And that's why I say with the Guardians and the starships, just eyeball it, because um, a Mark One Guardian of something that is already terrifying doesn't need to get vastly larger for its Mark Five version. But so it's just kind of it's a judgment call. The Guardians and the starships, in terms of how you scale them, um, they're already big. We know they're big. They're the centerpieces of what's going on a lot of times with AI groups moving around, groups of ships moving around. And so scale them big, but exactly how big each mark is a judgment call. Okay, so we have a list of columns here of things that are done, and we have 132 total ships at the moment that we need to get painted. That is not including the variants of things that are having multiple mark levels. So we've got a first column of, is this repainted? We've got by who. In the case of, there's like 19 more that have been repainted that I haven't put in there yet that are repainted by blue. There's, have they been merged into Unity? Now, this is that video from the other day of getting the what do you call it? Excuse me. Just getting it merged in at the highest possible quality. So I did one on the bomber, and I did one on the plasma cannon. And so once somebody has done that, then put your name in the merged into Unity column. LOD1 plus is the next step, and then the step after that is into the game. So blue in the general will be the one doing the repainted column. Occasionally it'll be me, but for the most part blue from now on. Merged into Unity and LOD1 plus and into game, those will be Pepisolo and Goldenwolf. So that's where we are. I'm going to cut this video off here and make the LED 1 plus video separate. So